showed me why. Instead of asking why, start asking why not. Time flies when you're having fun. Time flies when you're lying in the sun. Bit by bit, the older that we get, the faster it ticks. Time flies. Whoa, whoa, time flies.
You can look at me or the camera, depending on, yeah. Hello, good afternoon. Lyndall here with Marshfield Old School Times. We've got a very special guest with us today, Donald Shockley. Don, welcome.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah. So we're going to hear all about Don's life and his story. He's kind of a remarkable guy. He's been all around the world, literally. So we'll hear about Don. I did want to mention a couple of things before we start. First of all, our producer, Logan Fraker's back with us today. Landon covered the last time, so Logan, thanks for coming in. They've got a big pinball tournament going on downstairs, so the activity center here, community center, is very busy with lots of, I think we have 4 graduation parties out back in the depot, and the donut shop is bustling over there, and just lots going on. So it's a great time here in Marshfield. But I did want to mention our theme song, Time Flies, written by Dennis Beck, our great friend, songwriter. We want to send our condolences out to the Beck family. Dennis lost his grandson a few days ago, Reese, and tragic accident. So Dennis, our prayers are with you and your family. And gosh, there's just no words that we can really describe how that may be and how you feel at this time. But we do send you Godspeed and prayers. So Dennis, is a really good friend with another guy that I went to school with, Roger Replogle, and they went to California many, many years ago, and they're actually coming back this summer for their 50th class reunion right here on this campus for Reunion Fest on July the 3rd. Well, Roger had been telling me a little bit, and I'd see some posts about his Uncle Donald, and Don's just a remarkable guy. He lived, he's got a book out now, Life as an Expat, 45-year journal by Donald Shockley, an Ozarks native. And he was down the road today, back in town here for a book signing at the Webster County Historical Society. So Roger gave me his number, and I was able to contact Don here a day or two ago and to see if he could come by and let us do a podcast. And Don, thank you for taking the time to do this. I think Marshfieldians will be excited to hear about your life because it's not like all of ours have
Sure.
been. So with that, I think it's always good to start at the beginning. And, this is a real easy, we have no structured questions, as you can see,
Yeah, no problem.
but just a conversation. And I kind of like to start with you and kind of who you are and your siblings and your folks and pretty much, what brought you into this world a few years ago.
Well, yeah, I guess I think most people in Marshfield, they probably know, of course, Glenn Maxine, and Maxine was my sister.
Uh-huh.
Probably a lot of people know Frank Browning.
Mm-hmm.
His wife was my sister.
Right.
And they may know my brother Bill Shockley, who worked here with the Highway Department for several years,
Right.
and ended up being the superintendent of the Highway Department in Buffalo.
Dallas County,
Dallas
wasn't it? Yeah.
County,
Mm-hmm.
Dallas
Yeah,
County.
yeah.
So you probably know them a lot, though you probably don't never heard of me.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I left here quite early. I think I left in 1961.
61, okay.
61.
And you graduated from Marshfield in
1960.
1960, okay. All right. And, of course, last name Shockley, and then there were how many kids?
There was actually 9 of us.
Nine kids. Mm-hmm. And Glenn and Maxine helped raise you. I know
did.
you've given a lot of credit to them for your upbringing.
They did. In fact, I'm very fortunate. All of us kids were very fortunate. Back whenever we lost our parents, I lived with my uncle Joe and Mary for a while, who were very, very good for us.
Mm-hmm.
Took very good care of us. And then they had too many kids. They had 6 kids.
Yeah.
There were 6 of us.
Oh, wow.
So there was 12 kids in a small house.
Wow.
And Bill and Glenn, Maxine, and Laureen, Bill's wife, they decided that they would take us and they divided 3 of us with Bill and Lorraine, and the other 3 went to Glenn Maxine. And
Yeah.
I was one of the ones that went to Glenn Maxine.
Yeah.
Myself, my little sister Carol, who
Uh-huh.
has passed away, and Pat.
Uh-huh.
Brother Bill took Mary Ellen, Jimmy, and the little baby Bob.
Uh-huh.
And of course that changed after a while because Glenn decided to have a sawmill out around Mount Sinai. You don't remember that.
No.
For sure. But he needed some help in that sawmill, so they traded.
Oh, they
So,
did?
yeah.
Really?
Yeah, so Jim came with Glenn, and Carol went with
I see.
Lauren. So
Yeah.
in the summertime, Jim and I'd go out and work with Glenn in the sawmill.
Really? Do you remember where that mill was at out there?
I do.
Like from the church, say?
The church.
Yeah.
If you come, I think if you go east of the church,
Mm-hmm.
about a quarter mile down, I don't know what it's like now, but it used to be that was all woods.
Uh-huh.
And
That would be pretty much where Fred Replogle, I think, had
I think it
a
is.
home there, and then
Yes.
his boys maybe, or one of them, and there was a log cabin right in there somewhere.
Yes,
My
do
mother,
remember that.
my mother was born in that log cabin.
Really?
Yeah, she was born in that
Oh,
log
the
cabin.
Biggers.
The
Oh,
Biggers,
yeah,
Biggers
I
place.
I remember that cabin.
Well, it's gone now, but as a boy, we drove us out there a time or two, and I recall it, but it is gone now. But yeah, and I think that's on some of the land that maybe Fred Replogle's family has now.
I believe that sawmill, if I'm not mistaken, was I think it was 1953.
53, okay, yeah.
And what Glenn did, Glenn was working. In fact, I was talking to somebody this morning who worked at Kraft. And I think that used to be an old Way. Was it they made Way or
Way?
something? Yeah.
Out there?
No, in
Oh,
Springfield.
oh
the
yeah,
Kraft store.
yeah.
And so Glenn was working there, but he needed somebody to work in sawmill. So Walter Brixey
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
run the sawmill,
Right.
and my brother Jim helped, and
Yeah.
I shoveled sawdust.
I'll be darned. And of course, the Brixies, the Biggers, the Replogles are all connected and related and so forth. And then the Rose too.
The roast, yes.
Uh-huh. So my grandpa Cale would have he started Roast Lumber about that same time. He was in the saw log cutting business, and they had a portable sawmill they would take to the farms and then cut the logs and then brought them in to the yard. The lumber yard started there and built the barn to saw the lumber up and then put it in the slots, and they sold that oak lumber. Many homes and certainly barns were built with that in the 50s before they started bringing pine lumber back through on train cars, to build homes with. But they would use that oak lumber. A lot of homes in the 50s were built with
I
that.
remember that. And actually, I think if I remember right, I think Glenn and Cale were first cousins, I believe.
Yeah,
weren't they?
that's correct. Yeah.
So I think, if I'm not mistaken, Glenn, along with Cale, started at sawmill. I may be wrong.
They may
Somebody
have.
probably
Yeah, he
correct me.
could have been. Yeah.
And what they did, they were cutting railroad ties, and they were taking them to Mansfield.
Okay.
So we'd work maybe 4 or 5 days and get a bunch of ties made up, and then we'd haul them to Mansfield.
Wow.
And all the lumber that we hit, of course, if you're making railroad ties out of a log, you're going to have some 2x4s and 1x2s
Along the edges.
So,
Yeah.
So Cale would take those.
I see.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, I learned something already today. I do every week. That's great.
If I'm mistaken, somebody may correct.
Well,
So
it's okay if you
my
get it
memory's
close.
not the best.
Well, mine's not either, but we do the best we can. But you know what? That's what's remarkable about what we're doing here is the fact that we're documenting and we're getting it in the cloud today, but down on paper, you might say, but for future generations.
I really think that's fantastic.
Well,
I've
thanks.
watched a couple of these
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Tom and Wayne Martin and Tom
Yeah,
Barnes.
your
and,
old classmates, right?
Yeah, classmates. So I thought, but
Good.
I didn't see no reason you'd ever bring me on here, but
Well,
I
we're going to find out here why we did, I think. So, okay. So you did that, and then graduated from Marshfield in 1960. Then what was your next move in life?
Well, what I did when I graduated, when I grew up, I worked with Vessel Equipment. That's where I met your dad.
Yeah.
In fact, I was just telling you about your
Yeah.
dad was quite an inspiration to me.
And that's remarkable. I'd never heard that story. That's awesome.
He would sit down with me. Ernie Vestal, to start with, had the International Harvester.
Right, yeah. And that was, just so people know, that was on Jefferson where the new jail, the new court annex is there here in town. International. They sold like tractors and implements and even trucks too.
Trucks,
yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
Yeah. So Don sold refrigerators at that time as well, and quite a lot of stuff. And quite often, I think I was in junior, senior year when he was there.
Yeah.
And he'd always, when I didn't have nothing to do and he had nothing to do, he'd sit down and talk to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he always told me, they called me Donnie.
Uh-huh.
He'd always say, Donnie, you got to go to college.
Yeah, yeah.
He'd tell me that all the time.
That's awesome.
And he said, I don't know how you can do it, but he said, there's always ways to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I always remember that. He's quite an inspiration to
Well,
me.
that's great.
Yeah, really.
I'm so glad that you told me that. Well, I know one story that he told me from those days. You guys would everybody was replacing their old ice boxes with refrigerators. Refrigeration was just getting popular in the 50s. And he said we would go haul those old ice boxes off for the people for nothing. You know, we'd deliver the refrigerator, haul off their box. He said we'd bring them back up to the shop and chop them up, the wood, and burn them in our stove in the shop. Because, you know, they'd do something with them. That's how plentiful they were and not valuable, you know. And today those things are worth a lot of money.
Yeah, I remember that old stove back there. I'm sure Wayne Martin, before I went to work there, Wayne Martin worked there.
Oh, he did?
And I'm sure he put wood in that stove as well.
Right.
So did I. You know.
Right. Huh.
But
Wow.
Ernie Vestal, he was quite good to me. And then later Clarence came in. They both were fantastic to me. But I think they knew my dad.
Yeah, I bet they did.
Past, yeah.
Rodney Vestal was just in town this week.
Really?
Uh-huh. He lives in Texas, and the class of '68 had a little gathering back here in the what we call the depot, which is the old band building. And it was on Tuesday night, and the class of '68, and they had a great time. I don't know how many were there, but I know at 10:30 I was coming through to lock it up, and they were all still sitting there in a big circle visiting.
Really?
And I walked in, and Gary Carpenter was there, and I said, "You guys are on your own. I'm going home, Gary. Here's how you turn everything off." And he said, "Okay, we'll see you." So they may have stayed who knows how late, but they were having a great time. But Rodney we visited for a minute and
great.
had a good time. And of course they mentioned they watched the show, and so it's flattering to know. Yeah. Anyway, so you worked there, and then
I worked there. Then the first job I had after that, I went to work for the steel mill when they first started that. And I worked there for 1 year. Yeah. And I had a brother in St. Louis that worked for McDonnell Aircraft. And after a while, my brother convinced me to move there. So I left the steel plant. I was working on a machine operator. And I went to McDonnell Aircraft. And I got on in the machine shop. And I worked there a couple of years. And then after that, I went to Bible College in Tupelo, Mississippi, 2 years.
Really? Huh.
And then after I found out they had a college in Houston, Texas, so I went there and I could continue working in a machine shop. So I moved to Texas. And,
so this was the mid '60s by that time.
64, 65, I think, something like that. And so I worked in machine shops there, and later I moved to Florida. I've moved a lot, huh? My brother said I was born under a wandering star, so I probably was. Yeah. And so then after, I think 1970, I moved to Florida. And I worked in machine shops, and I worked as a millwright in the mines. You know, they got a lot of phosphate mines there. And then later on, moving like I did, I came back to Missouri and I went to work in Fulton in the nuclear plant.
Really?
I worked there a while, and that's where my story starts.
So I've been to the Callaway plant up there.
Yeah, that was it.
Which the current plant was, I think, built in the early '70s. So what was there then? Is that when it was? I guess you're talking about then by that time.
Yeah, well, I have a hard time with dates.
Yeah,
I'm 83. Huh?
Yeah, well, you certainly don't appear to be. But
I think that was 78.
Okay, that's okay. So it hadn't been there. That's when the Callaway nuclear plant. Yeah, I'll be darned. So you were there in those early days.
Yeah, I wasn't there long. I think I was there maybe 7 months, and I was a millwright, hard as a millwright. They didn't have no work for me, so they loaned me to the carpenters. In fact, the millwrights come out of the carpenter hall. Yeah. And
now, had you been in the union up to that point in your other jobs too?
I've been in the union for years.
I see. Prior to that, I got you.
Millwright local.
Yeah,
out of Florida.
I see.
And they were they had a vessel that was 20 foot tall, and they had to put a top on it, just temporary top. So I was standing on the edge, looking over, and some other carpenters were carrying a piece of plywood. It was a very windy day that day, and it blew out of their hand. It hit me and knocked me off.
Oh my gosh!
And fortunately, I fell on a pile of dirt about 6 foot high, and I don't remember falling. Of course, you don't remember those things.
Right.
And when I fell, my back just slid down that pile of dirt.
Huh.
But it didn't break no bones, but it separated all my ribs. So I was off
Really?
work for 6 months.
Really?
And that's when this started. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know if I should go back out there or not. And I decided I might just look for something else, because I was driving from Warrenton, Missouri, and so I looked in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and I seen an advert for a temporary millwright in Indonesia.
Yeah.
I thought I might just try that.
Really?
Yeah.
Was that a big step?
It was a big step for me.
Yeah.
And so I went. I thought, well, I'll just go for an interview and see what they say, and they hired me.
They did.
Temporary basis, and so they hired me in 1978, the summer of '78, and it was supposed to be a 4-month job. So
Yeah.
I went, and that's the rest of it is history.
That's when your nephew Roger and I were living together in Springfield, going to college.
Yeah.
That was exactly the time.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it would have been.
Wow. Unbelievable. Huh.
Yeah, Roger and Ronnie, by the way, and Dave and Jack,
Yeah,
my
yeah,
little
yeah.
brothers.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, they're just wonderful people. I mean, they really are, and very accomplished
And
people.
Glenn is my CIs.
Yeah. So wow. So you went to Indonesia first,
Yes, it was first time overseas,
and when you say millwright, what specifically did you do?
Well, I was a machinist, and when I went to Florida, I worked a little while in machine shops, and
Mainly for big equipment, like parts for big equipment and stuff.
Yeah, and then what a millwright, what they do is in construction they set and the like steam turbines and compressors and pumps and conveyors and this type of thing. So in Houston, I'd work quite a bit in machine shops, working on steam turbine parts and this type of thing. So I was very familiar with it. So they talked me into going to the millwright hall and joining millwrights. So I joined the millwrights.
I see.
So I become a millwright.
I see.
And so that's what we do.
Yeah.
And also I worked a little bit of construction in that, and then I ended up in Fulton.
Yeah. Back at Fulton, was there, I don't know if you've followed what's going on here now, but we've got this data center coming to town, and you've read about it. There's a lot of fear mongering, which, right or wrong, I mean, it's there. And so, what was it like back there in Fulton in those early days? Was there a lot of fear of the nuclear kind of progression that we were going into with providing electricity through nuclear activity?
There was quite a bit.
I wondered how that was.
About that time, I remember. I think there was quite a lot of protests in Oklahoma. I think they tried to build one, and maybe they did. But even in Fulton, there was protests.
Yeah.
But I never was around. They always had them outside the gate.
I see.
There's always people protesting.
And we call it the Callaway plant, but they've never had any kind of an accident at all that I'm aware of. And someone said, the accidents that have occurred across the world, you think of 3 Mile Island, or you think of, was it Russia where the other big one occurred? There was some obvious faults that today, if they were building any, which I don't guess they are right now, but in America they certainly are over China in places. But I guess those measures have been put in place that wouldn't allow those kind of things to happen. Pretty safe, I guess.
I'm pretty sure in the future you're going to see more of them.
Yeah.
But I think they got what they call mini.
The minis, yeah. I learned quite a bit about that when I was on the utility committee at the State House. There was a lot of, obviously, that was a period of time when the Obama administration, they were trying to eliminate any progress toward building more nuclear and coal. Everything was trying to move toward wind and solar, and which But anyway, I just learned a little bit about it, and took a tour of Callaway, and it was very interesting. But you know what was interesting about that, and you may relate to this. So they had us suit up, and we had all this very sanitary environment and masks, the whole deal. And we went out and we walked on the catwalk where the reactor was, and there were guys out there in construction with hard hats on, working around the new reactor. They didn't have anything on, and I never could understand that.
Yeah,
it was weird, but they were doing some maintenance work or something. And then the other thing that I found interesting, we always heard about the spent rods and all that, and what would happen to them, and how they haul them out west and bury them or whatever. But the Callaway rods, every rod that had been spent there was right there on the grounds in a bunker.
Probably in a container.
Yeah, it was a pool, actually, a pool of like liquid. And they were just getting to the capacity, and this was 10 years ago, and they were getting ready to build a new bunker to go for the next phase. But all those years, and they were all right there in like an Olympic-sized pool, which I thought, well, that's not as bad as people made it sound like. They have all these rods they have to deal with across the world. And then I guess the technology was being developed, or is being developed overseas, to recycle those rods and even extract more of the, I guess it's uranium, right? From them, and to where what would be left would be very minimal. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah. In fact, I left before they started it up, of course. And
it hadn't started yet.
No,
I see.
I was in the very early
I
stage.
see.
In fact, I'm not real familiar with the nuclears.
I see.
I've been on a lot of power plants, but
right. So when you went to Indonesia, what did you do specifically over there?
They were building ammonia and urea plant, and you know what ammonia and urea is. So you make ammonia out of natural gas.
I see.
And from there you make through the process you make urea.
In fact,
there's a lot of things that come out of natural gas, as you're finding out with this thing going on in the Middle East.
Right.
And so I went over. They had 2 millwrights on site getting ready for startup, and one of the millwrights got sick, so that's why they needed a temporary millwright. So that's how I got over there.
Wow.
And I got there just when they were starting it up, about ready to start it up.
What was the country like in those days? The culture and
well,
was it pretty friendly.
Very friendly. The Indonesian people are fantastic people. In fact, I'll get back to that in a second.
Yeah.
But I've been all over the world. I've been to 6 continents, working 6 continents, and I've found out that people are people no matter where you go.
Yeah, that's right.
But the people there were fantastic, and at that time they were Muslim, Islam. The women didn't wear back then. In fact, a lot of it, you go in the countryside and the women didn't wear nothing from the waist up at that time. They'd walk around, they didn't know they were naked. And so it was quite different.
Yeah.
And for me, being a country boy, and like that, I think you're reading the guys, I was so country, they called me Hayseed.
Hayseed?
I was Hayseed. And
interesting.
Until I left.
Yeah.
And then, but it was Islam, and it was quite a change for me, because every day at 5 o'clock you'd hear the people in the mosque praying and so on and so forth.
Wow.
They always put over a loudspeaker.
Yeah.
It was quite different.
Yeah.
But
they didn't treat you as an American or Christian based or anything. They didn't hold you. No racism shown toward you or anything.
And while I was there, on the weekends when I'd get off, we usually worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, actually 7 days a week, but we'd get a day off once in a while, which that was okay with me.
Yeah.
But every once in a while we'd go up into the mountains, and one of the drivers I kept asking about was the churches around here. And one day he said, Mr. Shockley, I will take you to a Christian village.
Really? Yeah.
So we went up, I don't remember where it's at, but we went up in the mountain. It seemed like an all-day drive. And the whole little village was Christian.
Really?
I wish I knew where it was at, but I couldn't take you back. So, but it was a Christian village.
All Christians.
Yeah.
That's cool. And the government or whatever didn't have a problem with that, I'm assuming, or they didn't know it or whatever.
No, when
Kind of a tribe? Was it kind of a tribe or something? A little tribal area?
I think, yeah. In fact, Indonesia is very tribal.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the countries
Yeah,
overseas.
yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I worked there 4 months, and as you'll read in the book later, I went back. I think I worked in Indonesia a total of maybe 3.5 years on different projects.
I see.
Yeah.
So then where did you go next then? Or
I came back, and that I was temporary status. But while I was there, I got to know the resident manager very well. And when I left, the day I left, he said, "Don, I've talked to office, put you on permanent status." So I went back. I had another job. By the time I got back, and the last job I worked in the States was in Catoosa, Oklahoma, just outside of Tulsa. And that was a nitric
that's where the blue whale is.
Oh, is it?
On Route 66.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
So I worked there, and I quite enjoyed that because I got an uncle in Claremore. So I saw him quite often.
Yeah,
I was there.
yeah.
But I was there 9 months, and I think I finished that in November. I forget the dates.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a few dates wrong in here.
Nobody knows.
But the stories.
We won't tell anybody.
But anyway, we finished in November, and they were starting. They were building 2 ammonia urea plants in Trinidad. In fact, they were moving 2 plants. They moved one from that had shut down from Canada, and one that was in storage that hadn't been built to Trinidad. So they decided they needed me because I'm a machinist and a millwright, and a lot of the equipment that we had to machine it on site.
I see.
So it was quite good for me.
Yeah.
And I was there probably about a year and a half.
I see. Anything remarkable about Trinidad that you'd want to mention?
To me and for the family, it was a fantastic place. It's the first time my family, my first wife and my children
went with you.
Yeah, and
so this was the 80s by that time, maybe.
No, this was 79.
79. Okay.
I might get the dates wrong.
So you did quite a bit there from Fulton to even to that time, because that's a pretty short period of time.
Yeah,
wasn't
I
it?
did.
Yeah.
In fact, I brought these along just to show.
Oh my goodness
so
gracious!
The reason the dates are wrong here, I have a hard time with dates, and I had to go through these
to get them confirmed. Yeah. Wow.
But when you travel, that's what you got.
Yeah.
But anyway, we quite liked Trinidad, and there was a lot to do, and we did have some time off there. We'd get a day and a half a week off. A lot of beaches. One thing that we did that my kids remember, every year the turtles would migrate down the coast of America, and they would breed and hatch their eggs on the east side, on the opposite side where we were at, Trinidad. So when they come, it's sort of a ceremony they have where a lot of people will go over, and they'll help the turtles get the eggs. When they hatch, they'll take the little turtles and they'll put them in the sea.
Really?
So we had a great time in Trinidad. Also, you talk about chocolates and cocoa. They had the old cocoa plants, and at that time we'd go out, and my kids remember this. They said, "Dad, be sure and put that in the book." But they had this place where they bring all the cocoa in, and then they had a traditional dance where they would sing, and probably for tourists.
Yeah.
But they'd sing and they'd walk on these cocoa nuts in order to get the shells off of them.
Really?
Before they process. So a lot of things was quite good.
Yeah.
And then we'd go swimming a lot in Chagaramas Bay, where during World War II, the Americans had a submarine base there.
Oh, I see.
It's great for swimming, so we swam there.
Trinidad's down at the very bottom. It's
the bottom. Tip. It's just off the coast of eastern Venezuela.
Yeah. So the climate was not terribly hot.
No.
It would be more like it would be here, from the equator or whatever.
It could get warm, but I don't remember it being so hot.
Yeah.
It was quite nice.
Wow.
But we enjoyed it.
How long were you there?
Just under 2 years.
2 years. Then what was the next move?
Well, actually, I got there before Christmas in Trinidad, so my kids, in fact, I lived, I think about 2 months before our apartments were ready in upside down Hilton in Port of Spain. So my kids, they have great swimming pools, so they didn't want to move. So they spent Christmas there, and then the next job was in Venezuela. and I had to mobilize there again on the 1st of December, so they spent their next Christmas. In fact, they spent Christmas in Oklahoma, and Christmas in Trinidad, and they spent Christmas in Venezuela.
Wow.
So, but after
How many? We didn't mention how many children do you have?
3.
3. Okay.
I've got 3 children, and with my wife now in Belgium, I've got. I call them a stepchildren, not, but they're just like my kids.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
So
Yeah.
I got 3 children here.
Okay.
But so actually Kellogg didn't. They had a couple of jobs. I would have to wait a couple of months for the next project, and Kellogg had they had some of the people that didn't have work. So one of the resident managers of a project, a bauxite project in Venezuela.
Now, what was Kellogg Company? What are you?
Kellogg. Actually, at the time I went to work for them, they were the leading. I'd say one of the biggest construction companies in the world. It was always depending on the workload. You had Kellogg, Bechtel, Fluor. They were the 3 main ones at that time.
I see.
Somebody might correct me on this.
Yeah.
It depended on the workload, and Kellogg was usually one of the biggest.
And what type of construction would they do, mainly?
They built refineries. They had some of the designs in refineries.
Okay.
They had a lot of designs in petrochemical plants. Like they had the ethylene furnace refinery furnaces.
Mm-hmm.
Ammonia, urea, quite a lot of things. Kellogg was quite well known.
Right.
And in fact, today Kellogg is part of the Halliburton Group.
Oh, they are. Okay.
In fact, they're called Kellogg Brown Root. Brown Root was also quite big back, but they were mainly in the States.
I see.
Except the time they went to Vietnam.
Yeah.
You probably know about that. But
probably not. No, not really.
But anyway, well, in the States, Brown Root was a non-union. Kellogg was a union.
Okay.
In the States and overseas, we weren't union, you know.
I see. Yeah. And that was Vietnam. I mean, they went over there. Yeah.
But in Venezuela, it was a bauxite plant.
Yeah.
It's quite a huge project, and the guy, Charlie Chamberlain, he'd worked for Kellogg many years, and he went over as a site superintendent. So they requested I come down with a few other Kellogg people, and we were there for just under 2 years as well.
2 years there. Wow. You just really never had a place to just really put your feet down, did you, in those years? What, like, when you came home, was Oklahoma kind of your home base when you came home, or
no,
not really?
With Kellogg just moved you. So when I left Oklahoma, they just put my furniture and everything in storage, and
I see.
They let you sell your car, and wherever you go, they help you buy a car. And Trinidad, I did in Trinidad,
just start over.
Venezuela, and later in different places.
Pretty much didn't own a home out over there, though. You just rented most of the time. Yeah.
But when I'll back up. When I left Trinidad, I did buy a home in Florida.
Florida, I see.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah.
So after Venezuela, I get mixed up sometimes. I had 2 or 3 small single status jobs. In fact, after Venezuela, I went to the Persian Gulf. I worked there on an island as an LNG, liquid natural gas. You know, liquid natural gas. I worked there on a liquid natural gas plant. It was a revamp. It was built by Bechtel, and Kellogg was asked to come over and do a revamp. So I was there for just a few months. I won't talk too much about that because it's in the book.
Okay.
It's a little bit about my daughter running off from home.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
really?
So Florida. But and Roger got involved there because she ended up in L.A.
She did.
Yeah.
So that was just the 80s by then?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I came back home, and from there, I have to stop and think. I think then I went back to Indonesia.
You did?
Yeah. And
so by this time, were you physically making parts, or were you just a supervisor overseeing the project?
In construction, I was supervising in the installation and the startup.
I see.
So whenever you build a plant, you got your big compressors and your turbines and all the different. And what we'd do, we would usually go and we'd use the labor of that country, and we would supervise.
I see.
Yeah, I have a little bit of problem talking about my age, so.
Oh, you're doing great. You're doing great. No, you're doing wonderful.
Anyway, we would supervise the installation, and we trained the people. A lot of people that would need to be trained, so we trained the people as how to to set a pump, put
Right.
a motor to it, or steam turbine, and how you couple it up. You know, they do the alignment and level them out, and put the piping on, and so on and so
Yeah,
forth.
yeah,
So,
sure.
and then at startup, we'd have to start everything up, test run them, and kind of stick around and train the people for a little while
Yeah,
after we
yeah.
started up.
So that's why you were just in a place for a year or two or something, and then
Yeah,
you get it up and going, and then move to the next project.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I never considered myself one of those special people, but these people that travel all the time, like they're very special people. They're
Yeah.
usually rough people, and they're hard drinkers,
Yeah.
and I'm not a drinker.
Yeah. Well, I can tell because of
Yeah.
your health at your age. Obviously, it's real obvious that you've taken care of yourself.
And I'm not a rough person either, but most
No.
of these people are really rough.
Yeah.
They're tough guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Wow.
I guess that's why they call me hayseed. I didn't fit in.
Well, it's because of your upbringing and
Yeah.
the culture that you were raised around. Obviously, was influential and it's paid off for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from there, after Trinidad, Venezuela, I almost have to look find it.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So-
that's okay, Cal. We can look at the book.
Then I ended up.
I wish I'd had the book prior to this, but
Yeah.
but I'll be excited to. Looks
I-
like you've got Australia and
Yeah.
I mean you've got.
Well, after that, I ended up in Kalimantan, which it's now called. It was called Borneo at the time.
Uh-huh.
It's called Kalimantan now. It's on the eastern part. So I ended up on actually three short-term jobs, and then after I was there a little while with Kellogg, they didn't have anything for me. They told me I had to go back and stand by, and of course they'd pay me, but
Yeah.
I didn't like that either. So
Yeah.
while I was there on the last job, a company, Roy M. Huffington, I don't know if you ever heard of Huffington or not, but they had had two LNG plants that had been built by Bechtel, and they were building two more. And when you travel overseas in these jobs, you meet people, you start meeting them over and over and over. So
Yeah.
I went down one day. I was just, I think about 20 miles north of that on an ammonia urea plant, and I run into one of my old friends. And he said, "Don, come down. If you have nothing going, then come down and go to work down here." So I went down and went to work there.
Yeah.
And it was a family status, so I moved my youngest daughter went, and of course my oldest daughter and son were ready for high school. And
Uh-huh.
so I was there for 2 years.
Yeah.
And it was quite a nice camp, and we were right on the equator, so there's a lot of stories in there about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but quite exciting.
Yeah.
It was, and while I was there was two new LNG plants built. One of them blew up the day I came.
Really?
In, yeah. In fact, I was on the plane in Balikpapan, which is about 40 miles south, and I was getting ready to take off to fly in that little small plane up to Bontang. And we got in the air, and they radioed says, "Turn around." And we just had a major explosion in the plant, and in fact, the plant manager was on the plane with
Oh,
me.
wow.
And he was really nervous. So we landed, and finally we went in. One of the plants blew up. We killed 7 people. And
Did it really?
A lot of the
Yeah.
Indonesian people. They ran into the jungle, and it took them about a week to find these people
Really?
that were going to come back.
Really.
So then I was there for, I think, just under 2 years.
2 more years. Wow.
Yeah. Then I went back.
Was that the most tragic episode might have occurred in your career as far as?
I don't know. We had quite a few.
Did you?
There's one later. It wasn't. Yeah. I never really. I wasn't really so much danger in my life.
Right.
I have to say that.
Right.
Later on in my life, after I started the company, I was in. We had a project, a contract to run a gas plant in Nigeria, and it was right at the end of the construction, and I think there's 1,500 people on site, and we just came in. We had a contract. My company had a contract to start that plant up. And I got there, and about a month after that, I went there to stay 3 months. Normally, I'd just send people out and they'd take care of the plant. So we was going to commission, and we operated for 4 years after that. But I was just there a few weeks, and they had like a 16-foot fence around it, so we thought it was pretty safe. It was like a little island in the middle of the swamp.
Yeah.
And a lot of indigenous people around about, and they were always coming up, you know, and threatening.
Right. Now,
so
what country was this?
in Nigeria.
Nigeria.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
in the southern part of the swamps.
Yeah.
So one day we were sitting there, and all of a sudden there was a massive amount of people started coming in all sides, and they would get climbing up on the fence. And of course, on top you had barbed wire, which
Wow.
you didn't think they'd crawl over, but they got on the fence and it kept swaying like this, and all of a sudden, which I didn't think there's any way that fence could ever come over because it was a good fence.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden that fence fell over like that, and they came in and they had little homemade guns.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't think
That's like some movie, isn't it?
Oh yeah, really.
Yeah.
It wasn't really that dangerous for me, but I'm standing there watching it, and they come in and they were shooting, and I seen one guy drop over, and I thought, oh, that guy's dead. But of course, it was homemade guns; it just barely penetrated, and he just laid down, and it was all over. And they took two of our people. And,
They did.
Yeah, took two, and they were. They kept them captive. They kept trying to. We were. Actually, in the beginning we
Were they native people or were they
They were natives.
natives?
No, the two people. One of them was Filipino, and one was British.
Really?
From my
Right.
side.
Right.
And they kept trying to get Shell. Shell had the plant. We actually were contracted to Japan Gas Corporation, JGC, in the beginning, and then after it started up, we had a contract for 3 more years to run it for Shell.
I see.
And they took these two guys away. And when they went out, they were whipping them to get them to get across the creek and then to swim through the swamps. And for about a week, all the construction people left, and we had the plant. It was starting running. We couldn't leave, so they kept
Gosh.
myself and about. We're very safe because they brought the army in, you know.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, but we didn't know what happened to our two guys. And after about maybe 2 weeks, I think it was, they kept wanting Shell to pay them $1 million.
Oh, blackmailing them.
Yeah. So finally, they came back. This is a good story. I don't think I put that in there. But when they came back, one of them was a British guy. He was a young guy. And the other guy was a Filipino named Eddie. I call him Eddie.
Uh-huh.
And when they got back on site, Shell told me, he says, Don, you can tell Eddie and the other guy, they can go home and we'll pay them we'll pay you so you can pay them the full salary until their contract's extended. So the British guy went home. I never heard from him ever again. And Eddie come in, he says, I'm not going home. I said, no, you don't understand, Eddie. We're going to pay you a contract. You don't have to. He said, Don, I come here to work.
That's a guy you want in the bunker with you.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the other part of the story, which it's a true story, you know.
Yeah.
Actually, in our business, we got an old saying that half the lies we tell are not true, but the other half have to be because 50% they'd have to. That's mathematics. So.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Anyway, Eddie told me the story. He said when they got there, you know, they whipped them until they got there, and then once they got there, they put them in a little grass hut, and they fed them Mars bars and beer.
Really?
Yeah. So he said they were really nice. You know, they'd come out, talk to them.
They were,
and they'd play. They play a lot of checkers.
Really? Huh.
So they'd play checkers with them, and then one day, just before, about 2 days before they released them, one guy walked in real nicely. He said, "You guys are going to have to make a choice. We're going to have to take one of your ears." So the British guy was a young boy. He was a really young boy. So he started crying, and Eddie told him, he said, "You know, shut up." You know, said, "You know, they're going to take your ear if you don't shut up." So finally, the guy come back and says, "Okay, which one's going to give the ear?" Eddie said, "Well, I guess you'd take mine." You know, tough guy.
Wow.
And
they did.
No.
Oh, no.
About 2 days later, Eddie thought they was coming to take his ear, and they said, "No, you're going to be released."
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So That's probably one of the worst experiences I had on site.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I wasn't really scared.
Kind of the fear of the unknown. It's kind of scary. You know what's
really,
going to happen.
Yeah.
And you didn't know that they were treating them good, did you?
No, we didn't.
You didn't have an idea. So you may have been thinking they were getting tortured or getting already killed or something.
How am I going? I thought I had to go to the Philippines and talk to their parents.
Right.
And his family, and he wouldn't go home.
And that was kind of under your guys. You had it was your job to keep them. Wow.
Yeah. So that was probably I have to say I never really had any bad experience. I did go to jail a couple of times.
You did?
It's in the book there. I'll let you read that.
But not the Webster County Jail.
No. And then I guess one of the worst experiences.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I flew after we started the business. You can read about that a little too. Nobody wants to hear about that. But after I started my business, I traveled to Korea and Japan. I went to Japan a lot because we worked for Chiyoda, JGC, Japan Gas Corporation, Chiyoda, Mitsubishi, Mitsui, all those companies, and several companies in out of Korea. So I was there at least 3 times a year in both countries, in Singapore and China. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. That's why you have
that's why you have
like that.
All those.
Yeah. And,
but you didn't have to ever go to Vietnam during the.
I did.
During the conflict?
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went there. We never had a job there. I went there one time to bid on a project.
I see. Later on.
I rode up the river for about 50 miles.
Yeah.
It was quite nice. It was pretty modern then, though. But
yeah.
One time, the story I'm going to tell you. One time I landed in just on at the airport, just outside of Narita Airport, outside of Tokyo, and it's about 50 miles or 40 miles. I can't remember. On a train right into Tokyo, and I was supposed to meet a company called Mitsui Engineering. So I landed at I think it's about 5 o'clock in the morning. By the time I got on the train, I got into Central Station, Tokyo, and when I got there, people were screaming. They were running out of the train station, screaming, hollering, and I didn't know what to do. And nobody spoke English. I couldn't find nobody, so I finally went outside, and I got to a phone booth, and I thought, if I can figure out how to work this phone, I'll call Mitsui. And finally, a Japanese guy came up and spoke English, and he helped me.
Helped you.
And I got a hold of Mitsui, and they Don, they always called me Don-san.
Don-san.
Oh, Don-san, please just stay right there. Don't move, stay right there. They came, and they gave me white gloves. I don't know why. A helmet and safety glasses.
Really?
And then it was only, I think that was only about maybe a half mile to their office.
Oh, okay.
And when we got there, everybody was standing outside, and that's when they had the gas attacks. You remember gas attacks?
No, I don't.
Remember that? No?
I don't remember that.
And it was in the subway, it wasn't in the train station. So I think there was like 7 people killed. And
oh, really?
They thought
in Tokyo?
They thought there was a lot of people killed.
Yeah.
And so when I got to their office, they told me what happened.
Huh.
And he said, "Oh."
So you kind of missed that deal.
I missed that. Yeah. I wouldn't have been in on it because I wasn't going to get on the subway.
I see.
So it wasn't really dangerous. But the guy said, "You better call your wife because it'll probably," and it was on
the news.
International news. So
what was that? The 80s, probably.
No, this was. I can't even remember.
Yeah.
It probably was. I think it was 95.
95.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
It's in the book. Huh?
Yeah.
I have a problem with dates.
Yeah.
Anyway, I called my wife, and she hadn't heard about it. I thought I better call her because she knew I would be in Tokyo on a train.
Right.
So
then, how did you end up in Belgium?
After,
because that's where you live now.
Yeah, I lived there. Yeah. After Bontang, the reason I went back to work for Kellogg, they called me and asked me to come back because they had a job in Belgium. So I resigned from Roy and Huffington. I went to Belgium, and there I met my wife.
I see.
And I was there again 2 years until 1987, 88. I went to Australia.
Okay.
On family status again with my wife. And
she had 2 daughters.
She had
you said.
a son and a daughter.
Son and daughter.
And they stayed in Belgium with school, and they'd come on holidays. And Fortune Kellogg was very good about flying people around. They always flew us first class, and kids first class and everything. So they flew them on vacations to Australia. I was on the northwest part of Australia. It's a very dry area. It's desert almost. In fact, it's usually only the Aboriginals could live there.
Oh, really?
And so that was an LNG plant, liquid natural gas plant. You know what an LNG is, I think.
Liquid natural gas.
Yeah, you know the purpose of LNG probably, but what it is.
Not really. I just know that.
What it is an LNG plant. Usually they go through a process to take anything that will freeze out of it, and after you go through the project, they expand it, and when you expand it at certain degrees, it'll turn into liquid. And what that does, that decreases the volume 600 times, where you can ship it cold in these big tankers.
I see.
And then you get to the other side, you go to an LNG terminal.
I mean, I guess it's sort of like propane.
Propane, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what it was. But then I went. We was in Australia 2 years, and then after that, I ended up in Iraq.
You did.
Yeah, and that's a little bit of a story too. I think I put that in there.
Well, if that's in the 90s, then that was probably after the the Iraqi War, I guess, or
yeah, it was after.
or let's see.
Let me think back.
Yeah, because
I know the Iraq War had just ended.
Just ended. Okay.
And I was there. I wasn't there long.
It was after Kuwait, like when we invaded Kuwait. It was before that.
Yeah, I was there. Again,
okay,
dates
so
I can't remember.
Well,
but
the Gulf War was in 90 or 91.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, it might have been late 80s.
Yeah.
I'd like to say
Yeah. Well, that's when President H.W. Bush was still president in the Gulf War. Because he came to Marshfield in the summer of '91, I know that, and he was declared. He had 80% rating, victory approval, and then of course he got beat because of no new taxes.
I was that was an ammonia urea plant there, and I wasn't there long. I think I was there about 2.5 months, maybe not even 2 months. I think it was, and I've never had a kidney stone in my life, but I had a kidney stone, and finally the Charles Chamberlain, the guy who was in Venezuela with me, he was the leader there, and he told me, Don, you better go home. So they sent me home, and 2 weeks later, Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait.
Okay.
And what they'd done, Kellogg had been there during the war with Iran, Iraq. They were building plants there, and they started an ammonia plant during that war. And before they built the plant, they built an underground facility where people could stay in case the bombs started coming, and all the Kellogg people could go underneath and stay underneath it. So after the invasion, all my friends that were there after the invasion, they took them down, and they stayed underground for the rest of that war, and they were treated very nicely.
Really?
Very nicely. And so I missed that one.
The Iraqis treated them nicely.
They treated them very nice. Yeah.
Not the Iranians.
No.
Yeah. Wow. Huh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting.
But then, I don't know. And after that, when I finally decided we had a refinery project in Antwerp. I went on that project, and after I think I was there just a year. It's in the book. And then I finally decided, well, it's time to start my own company, because I thought it's time for me to quit traveling so much. But I didn't realize it, but then I'm going to have to travel a lot. So I started my company with another guy, and we started the company, and I think I put 40,000 in it, he put 40,000 in it, and we started a company, but the idea was going to be a commissioning company, and it ended up being a manpower company, human resources.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then for about the first 2 years, that's what it was manpower company, and I didn't like it. I wanted to be a commission company. And then finally we got a few commissioning contracts, and that's what we did.
That's what you did.
We kept the human resources.
Huh.
And so I had that company, and I actually did more traveling after I did that than I ever.
Was it mainly in that same industry that you'd always been involved with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but refineries, petrochemical, and a few power plants and stuff like that.
Yeah.
In fact, what's going on in the Middle East? I worked a lot in the Middle East. In fact, in Qatar, and I think you call it Qatar here. Qatar.
No, we call it Qatar.
Do you Qatar?
Yeah.
I was on we were on several projects there. And I think you know the LNG plant that was blown up by the Iranians. Yeah, I think there's maybe 10 LNG units, which are quite big and complex. We actually were there on the first 3. We wrote the operating manuals for the first 3. My company did.
Really?
Yeah. Another little story, but
and one of those
you don't have time
that's
for all these
one
stories.
that just got blown up here in the last 90 days or whatever.
Yeah. There's two of them.
Yeah.
Blown up. The first 3 we was on, they're still intact, and I understand that the 2 that were blown up was 4 and 5, and we were on number 4 with Japan Gas. And the first one was on with Chiyoda and Technip, and the last one was JGC and ExxonMobil.
Wow.
And I found out that only one of those was blown up.
Yeah.
So
you have had a life.
I don't know.
Well, you have. I mean, compared to those of us that have been here all of our life, you've had a life.
But actually,
Interesting life.
one of the reasons I wrote the book, it's really hard. It's hard on your family, you know. I really regret. I have a lot of regrets. I wish I could have just. I sometimes wish I just stayed in Marshfield. You know, I think anybody that travels overseas or leaves their home, your hometown is still the center of the universe.
That's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Because it is for us, you know.
It is for me.
But I'm glad to hear that. Yeah.
I still come back here, you know, and
but you had a great family, and you had
I did.
You had a great family for all those years. I know several have passed now, but I mean, I'm sure when you did come home, you had lots of wonderful family and friends.
What happened to our
visit.
family? But I was fortunate enough that we had, like Glenn and Maxine and Bill and Lorraine took part of us kids, and I think they were only in their early 20s. I think Lorraine was 19, and they took us kids, huh?
Right.
I don't think they'd allow that today. And I have to say, we weren't mistreated. We actually had the same opportunities that anybody else ever had in life.
Well, that's obvious. Look, I mean, look at all of you. I mean, it's really amazing. It's just that's why it's important for people, future generations, to hear these stories of how. You know, I know some of the younger generations look at us and them old boomers. You know, they're just this and that or whatever. But when you hear these stories of how we were raised and the culture we were given and blessed to be around and with, I mean, there's nothing like it. And in the Midwest, I've often thought, how in the world was I lucky enough to get born to 2 great families in the Midwest?
I think the same.
In the Midwest,
really.
in Missouri, in Southwest Missouri, of all places. It was like a gift from God that it makes you feel almost guilty. Well, why was I blessed like that? And some of these other people, but then again, it's just the way it is.
But you know, I think I said earlier, traveling around, you find out that people are just people.
Yeah.
When I first went to France, I didn't think I liked the French. But once you get to know them, you go into the countryside and you find out. You go to these little towns and you find out they actually are just like we are.
Yeah.
You know, and Ukraine, we had an office in Cyprus. In fact, I finally moved my main office to Cyprus, and I had a Ukrainian accountant.
Yeah.
So I got to know a lot of Ukrainian people.
You know, there's a lot of Ukrainians over here now, you know, and other nationalities from that part of the world that live, you know, several in Missouri. There's some in this town. Wonderful people. The ones that I've got acquainted with. I mean, they're
so the Russians.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
The only difference in people in the world is maybe the religion, the geography,
the leadership,
and that's what makes the difference in people.
Right. Yeah. So, how long have you actually, let's say, officially lived in Belgium?
A
long time, right?
I think about 39 years.
About 30, almost 40 years. So tell us about living in Belgium. I mean, that's your home. What's it like? And
well, I guess you know, I live on the coast in a tourist town. It's called Knokke, Knokke.
Okay.
Near a lot of people heard of Bruges. Bruges. Have you heard of Bruges?
Yeah.
Bruges or whatever. it's a lot different than here, but again, people are people, but it's a tourist town. Belgium, it's very fortunate to be like a little bit of the center of Europe, where you have the headquarters of the EC, and it's quite modern. I have to say, it's quite nice to live there. Quite
I
good.
should probably know this. Was Belgium, was it occupied during the war?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, my wife's mother, she was in World War II. She was a little girl in World War II, and they came into her area in the Flanders, where they have Flanders Fields. So they took her. Her father had to go to France to fight against the Germans, and they took her and her mother to the eastern part of Belgium, and she had to work upstairs for the Germans.
Really?
And so when I met my wife, she said, "Don't tell them you're German." They said.
Really?
Yeah. So,
really?
Yeah. But they went through World War I, World War II, and
my wife's mother was raised in Germany after the war, but her mother, my wife's grandmother, lived through all of that. She was born in 1930, and broken English, but they came over here. She brought my wife's mother over here when my wife's mother was 12, 1960 or somewhere around in there. But I never really got to hear Grandma Annie talk much about it. But one day I was down there doing some work on her house for her, and she started to talk to me a little bit. And so I was asking her questions just like I am you, and she was answering them. But one of the most impactful things that she told me was the night of broken glass.
Oh yeah.
Because she said they lived in the Heidelberg area of Germany, which I think was a little more south and more rural looking, but she and her parents worked for a wealthy German family, sort of like, I don't know, housemaids or whatever, cleaned and worked in the garden, whatever they did. But on the weekends they had off, and so they would go to town on the weekends. And she was 9 years old, I believe. Yeah, 39, I think. And said one Saturday they went to town, and all the shops were closed up. There was nothing. Nothing was open. And so they went back home. Well, then they find out. I mean, as it come to find out, that was for that town. That was the night of broken glass. That's when the Nazis came in and took the Jewish people and took them away, because the Jewish people owned all the shops.
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
but
my.
Again, just an anecdotal story, but of how it was in those days. Part of the country.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, my wife's mom, she would never talk about the war. My wife says they wouldn't talk about it. She said we could ask them questions. They wouldn't. They said they just didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons they didn't, because you had in Belgium, you had the French and the Flemish, and during the war they were collaborators, and after the war they were trying to find out who collaborated, who didn't, and people just didn't want to talk.
Right. Yeah.
So, but when I have to say this, when I first went to Belgium, I went with a guy one evening. We went to a place where you had a little cafe where you could eat, and we were sitting there talking. And as an older Belgian guy, he got at me, "Come on, and give me a hug."
Oh, really?
What's going on here? He said, "You're an American?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Thank you."
Oh, I bet that made you melt, didn't it?
Yeah.
So is the town that you live in, being a tourist town, is it fairly Americanized, I guess?
Or? Oh, it's very modern.
Yeah.
I know of only one other American that lives there, but
really?
It's very modern.
Yeah.
In fact, Belgium is it's a very modern place. We got good roads, and it's quite modern.
And we talked a little bit before the show, but so predominantly people know how to speak English there.
Well,
a lot of them.
If you in the Flemish area, they speak everything. In the French area, the Walloon, what they call the Walloon, the south and the east a little bit, they basically only speak French.
Yeah.
But in the Flemish area, they speak English, they speak German, they speak everything.
Yeah.
In fact, my wife's mother, she went to nurse's school in France, so she spoke French real good. And
Yeah.
my wife, of course, they speak everything.
Yeah.
Even right now, in our house, my wife's son married an Italian, and so those kids, they're in our house every day.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes when we're all together, you can hear 3 languages.
Do you understand them?
No.
You don't?
No, I don't. Yeah, I understand 2 of them, English and Dutch.
Yeah.
But
Does your wife speak Dutch predominantly?
that's what that's
Her native language.
Yeah.
But she speaks English.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, God, thank you. God bless you for that.
But the little kids, you know, they'll talk to their mom in Italian.
Yeah.
They talk to their dad in Flemish, and
Yeah.
they talk to me in English.
Yeah.
We'll be sitting, maybe having a meal, and you have 3 languages.
And you can understand them.
Yeah,
Pretty
and
well.
Pretty well, yeah.
Yeah.
The French, I can pick up a little bit, but I'm always blaming I'm dyslexic.
Oh, really?
I had Miss McDonald, and that's a story I won't tell you about,
Maxine.
that. But I'd
Maxine.
have to spend a lot of
Yeah.
recesses in writing words over and over. But
Oh my
anyway,
goodness. I'm around the Amish quite a bit, and of course they speak Dutch German. You know, it's I guess it would be comparable to like, you know, slang English. You know, like we know people that don't speak English very well, but but they speak English, and I guess it's similar to that because, I mean, I can pick a few words out, but it's just I can't do it, and I'm around them quite a bit, but I just can't tell what they're saying.
well, I came here.
I know
once,
Guten Morgen is good morning.
Good
I know
morning,
that one,
yeah.
but
I came here one time with my wife used to come. She don't come much anymore because she got problem with her legs.
oh yeah,
But we went to Tunis one time. My
Yeah.
brother wanted me to take you up there to a nice restaurant.
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and there's a little store in front, and so we all went back to eat. And Christina, she heard somebody talking, and she walked inside, and I looked as she was talking to them, and I said, I didn't think they spoke. I thought they spoke like a German language you could understand. She said no. She said they actually speak the old Dutch.
Dutch German is what they speak.
Yeah, the
Now,
old Dutch.
I think up around Tunis they may be a little more Mennonite as opposed
I think
to
it's
old school
Mennonites.
order.
Yeah.
They probably aren't. They probably have vehicles, but they're black, and they probably have used gas engines. And
Yeah.
but these, you know, the Seymour Amish are Webster County Amish, which there's about 5,000 now in Webster County.
Really? Wow.
They're old order. They don't use any. Oh, they'll use
I
my
think
power
they
tools.
speak. I think they speak German.
Do they?
I think so. And these my wife said that the language they spoke around Tunis. She said if you go to northern Netherlands, she said they sound just exactly the same.
Just like them. Interesting.
And that's what she said.
Yeah.
When you go to Belgium, one of the reasons it's so hard to learn a language, you go from one village to another, and their Flemish is sometimes they can't understand each other. So they got a common language they all speak.
I see.
But if they get off, even in Kanaka, if they get off,
Yeah.
her and her sister get together and brother start talking
Yeah.
local dialect, I don't understand nothing.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. Well, it's just like slang to us, I guess. You know.
Yeah.
But so, how often do you come home?
I try to come home twice a year. Sometimes I make it 3 times a
Yeah.
year.
Well, that's nice. That's very nice.
And that's why we put at that little apartment. So
You have
I
a
can-
place here, and that you can go.
In
And,
fact, my son, he decided to build a little 30 by 40 building, and I talked him into. I said, Rich, if you build a 40 by 50, I'll take 10 down this way and 10 that way.
Yeah.
So I've got a nice garage. I keep my car in. I bought a car and put it there.
Oh,
2014.
that's nice. Yeah.
And I got a little 1-bedroom apartment.
That is really cool. That's really neat.
And
Yeah,
I
that's
lock
great.
it up, and if somebody wants to use it, they use it, I guess.
Right.
And,
So, your siblings, you still have Patsy, and how is there
Uh,
other?
the only ones left is Marilyn. Marilyn, you know, lives now in Bolivar.
She lives in Bolivar.
J.D. Kilburn and
I see.
Patsy
And
Brown.
Patsy. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
And that's it, huh?
lots of nieces and nephews, though.
Well, yeah, I do. Yeah. When I come back, I try to come back at least 4 weeks at a time.
At a time. Yeah.
And I'm usually so busy. I don't blame anybody else. It's self-imposed, but
Right.
I usually try to eat with everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm usually very, very busy.
Yeah.
Trying to.
You said you wouldn't be able to be here for Reunion Fest, right? You're going to be going back already. That would have been nice.
Yeah,
if you
I would like to be here, but
yeah,
I don't think I might come, but I doubt it.
yeah, that's understandable.
The flights are getting expensive.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'd be a. Where do you have to fly out of?
I usually fly out of Brussels, sometimes Amsterdam,
Or
but
into here, where you come into?
well, most of the time I go through Atlanta or Delta, or I go to Chicago sometime with United.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Don, I could sit here and talk another hour, but you probably have things to do, and it's 2:41, so we've certainly killed an hour plus. But it's really been enjoyable. I really appreciate you taking time, and again on a late notice call yesterday, I guess. And but when I saw that. It's ironic because Roger had messaged me just this week again. We had talked about you prior, but sometime when you were in, and then I had no idea you were in. And then when I read that you were going to be at the Historical Society, I thought, wow, let's catch him. So it worked out great. But well, if any of you, I'm sure these are available on Amazon, anywhere you buy books.
Yeah, you can just you can say put "Life as an Expat," Amazon, my name, and you'll find it.
Yeah. So let's buy one of his books and learn a little bit more about Donald Shockley and his contribution to the world. And I'll just say this: just a very nice man and someone that's been successful, and it appears as God has rewarded you very well in life.
Yeah, I don't really think I'm so successful, but
but God's rewarded you. Right?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
We'll see you again real soon.
Okay.
I got to go over here and turn this off before we start talking amongst ourselves, because my producer leaves me after he gets me going. So.